viewers and listeners, to the Health Revolution, the program that shows you how to have a life of vibrant well being. In a world full of noisy health trends, we bring you clarity. In a sea of fads, we reveal the science backed strategies that truly work. We explore physical strength, emotional resilience, and mental mastery. These are the keys to an enriched life. Join us for inspiring interviews with champions who Welcome, everybody, to the Health Revolution. We are so excited that you have joined us today. Today is a day where we get to truly dive into that emotional resilience and mental mastery. And I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, and we are thrilled that you are joining us. And no matter which way that you are tuning in, please remember, don't forget to hit the subscribe button at the bottom of your show notes. Remember, you have some important information about today's episode. And so that way you have your takeaways. Now let's get into it. So today we get a chance to really embrace and support those of you who are working moms. And this is something that as women, women have trailblazed in so many different ways across time. And there's a lot on our shoulders and we are the glue that binds in so many different directions. I am thrilled to introduce to you my guest for today to have that conversation. First, let's go ahead and let's take a look at this. Meet Dr. Susan Landers, a compassionate neonatologist and a mentor for working moms facing burnout. Having navigated the demanding realms of newborn critical care for over 30 years while raising 3 children, Dr. Landers is a beacon of strength and resilience for women balancing career and motherhood. Her experiences have inspired her to guide working mothers through their challenges, offering strategies to manage burnout and achieve fulfilling work-life integration. Dr. Landers' commitment extends beyond the NICU. Through her influential social media posts, newsletters, and blog, she empowers mothers with practical tips and breakthrough approaches to thriving in both their professional and personal lives. Her book, So Many Babies, My Life Balancing a Busy Medical Career and Motherhood, is not just a memoir, but a resource, equipping women with the tools to navigate motherhood and careers with confidence. She also wrote the ebook, Master Your Mom's Stress, a resource guide for moms everywhere. I'm thrilled to have Dr. Susan Landers on our show. Susan, welcome. How are you?
Oh, Adriana, I'm well. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. How kind.
Well, I mean, you certainly a woman who has just demonstrated what it means to step into so many levels of strength. And I gotta tell you, it's inspiring to see all that you've done. And I love the fact that you've been in the field of medicine, but also, motherhood and your path to motherhood is something that you've been able to integrate and feel good about all that you've done. How were you able to do that? Let's just dive right into that.
Well, it was no easy feat. First of all, any working mother knows that balancing a full-time job and raising a family is difficult. I'll be the first one to tell you how hard it is. I was trained as a pediatrician and a neonatologist after medical school. I moved from South Carolina to Texas, where I had terrific training at big children's hospitals. And I became a neonatologist before I got married and had children. So my love of medicine and my love of working with mothers and babies in the NICU, love of critical care really was embedded in me deeply. But I also had this Southern cultural upbringing that to really be a woman, you had to get married and have a family. And I guess that comes from our American culture. Maybe it's a little more profound in the Deep South where I was raised in South Carolina. But I always thought that being a doctor, an accomplished neonatologist, was not enough. I wanted to get married and had kids. So after I finished all my training, my first year into being on the faculty at Texas Children's Hospital in Houston, I met and a couple of years later married my husband, who is also a physician, a pediatric nephrologist. He takes care of children with kidney diseases. So we were very compatible. I'm kind of a high energy, intense, critical care kind of person. And he's more of a laid back, take it easy, chronic care. Oh, we'll get to that eventually kind of person. And so we were balanced well from the get go. We decided to have children, and I didn't have my first child until I was 34 years old. So, for all those women out there worrying about whether their biologic clock is ticking and are they going to make it having kids, I had one at 34, one at 37, and one at 40. And as I told my 32-year-old daughter just last month, you have plenty of time to have a baby, honey. It's fine. Just finish your degree. Having a baby will come when you're ready. But it's most important to get your feet under you with your professional training. That's what I believe for women who want to go into the healthcare industry, whether it's nursing, medicine, psychology. My daughter is studying to be a psychologist. So I had kids after I was an established neonatologist. I also had lots of friends that were established pediatricians and pediatric specialists. We talked, we shared. We shared not only baby showers and play dates, which were few and far between, but we shared problems in the hospital, at lunch, at the table. How do you deal with this? What is your kid doing with that? What preschool are you interested in? Are you going Montessori or traditional? We shared everything. I had 6 or 8 good buddies who also worked at Texas Children's, and we supported one another in a way that was wonderful. And I think one of the problems with women today is they're a little more isolated than I was back then. And they're not with each other as much. Maybe they are at work with work colleagues, but I think it's a difference being on social media than it is being in person.
You know,
Anyway,
you
that's
bring
just
you
one of
bring a yeah, you bring an incredible point. I'm curious from your take, what are some of your personal breakthroughs you found yourself going through from the get-go that you're seeing today that are ongoing breakthroughs that women coming up need to be mindful of?
Well, when you first have a child, it totally changes your relationship. And there's a lot written about that. Moms can easily find guidance on how to keep your marriage alive and, continue to enjoy sex while you're raising a baby, a newborn, a toddler. It changes everything. And moms need to be prepared for that. I wasn't. We went through some rocky times in the first 6 months. But what I was also equally unprepared for, Adriana, was how my work life was difficult to schedule around my child. We were lucky enough to have a nanny. I could afford to hire a nanny. So I didn't have to rush home from the hospital to pick up a sick kid at school. I had somebody there to take care of him or to meet me at the pediatrician's office when I needed to take him to see the doctor. Oddly enough, I did all the childcare arranging, all the pediatrician visits, the pediatric dentist visits. And my husband never left work for anything like that. Never. I did it all, and I think gladly, but it took me a while to figure out how to balance work schedule constraints and having kids. Whether I could go to a tea at preschool or a meeting with a teacher at elementary school. I had to learn how to balance my schedule, trade off days in the NICU, get somebody to cover for me when I had already seen my patients and needed to rush home at noon. That's hard to do when you're working full time and something comes up with children and family, especially an emergency. You have to leave work sometimes. Many of us are stuck, like nurses who are working a 12-hour shift are stuck at work, but they have to have a plan for who's going to pick up the sick kid at school, who's going to meet you at home, who's going to take care of them until you get home at 7 p.m. So, learning how to coordinate my schedule, learning how to balance my work schedule, which was really heavy, with my home life, childcare schedule was huge. And I think all working mothers struggle with that. One of the things I'm reading is that women are starting to ask for flexible scheduling and for at home work, um, remote work, so that they can do the childcare and do the pickups and drop offs and not have to be stuck in their workplace.
How
It's a
old, at how, where were you in your profession when you started to utilize your voice more and more?
well, after I had had 3 children, and my husband wanted to move to a new city for a better job for him. And I did not have a job that I liked. In fact, I had a job I didn't like. And I started to become unhappy with my job. And I actually became depressed as a 41-year-old. I developed clinical depression after the birth of my third child, and struggled through that with medication and psychotherapy. I got better within a number of months, and I was able to work the whole time. That's when I learned the importance of setting my own priorities. Yes, it was taking time with my kids when I wasn't at work. Yes, it was work. I wasn't willing to go part time. I loved being a neonatologist. But a lot of women struggle with how much time can I give to work and how much time do I want to spend with my kids? So I went through all that in my early 40s and decided to change careers. I had a great opportunity. I got a real cush job as a medical director for an HMO, and I did that for 2 years, and it was so wonderful. I worked from 9 to 5. I went to meetings. I did some executive physician training, and I talked to other doctors about cases. And that contrast with what I had done as a NICU doctor told me that I missed practicing medicine. I wanted to go get back to the NICU, back to the mothers and babies, but I needed more control over my life and my time and my schedule.
You know, you bring up a good point that there was a moment where you were able to reflect. How did you take care of yourself? What did you do to implement self-care when you were going through that transition professionally?
In addition to the psychotherapy, and I highly recommend for women who are struggling, therapy with a counselor, or social worker, or psychologist, or psychiatrist. Sometimes we can't sort through all this on our own. So I sorted through my priorities with a therapist. My husband and I actively worked out what we wanted for our children's education, for a place for them to grow up, what we wanted to do to keep ourselves healthy. We joined an athletic club, and we started taking afternoons, like we would meet there at 4:30, and have the nanny bring the kids over after school. And 3 days a week, we worked out in the athletic club. And the kids were either swimming or playing kickball or whatever, age appropriate activities. So we set up a schedule for us to keep fit as a family. Not everybody's fortunate enough to be able to join a health club, but working out with children, whether it's working out in a health club or riding bikes or playing in the backyard, is a big part of anybody's healthy program. It was for me. Child's play is not only good for children, but it's good for adults. So we worked out. I played outside with my kids when I was off. I started to take more time with my friends. I talked to my friends because they knew I was going through a difficult time. I didn't have very many during that time. That's part of why I got depressed, I'm sure. But I talked to my very best friend, and she and I kind of struggled together. She was going through a similar phase after the birth of her second child. She was a pathologist, very different careers, but similar issues. And so we helped each other by sorting through what we wanted, how much we wanted to work, how much we wanted to be a mom, how much mom guilt we had. Her husband was also a physician, so we knew about this constant pull of who's on call, who's going in, who does what. And I think any couple where both couples work has to deal with whose job is more important, who goes in, who makes more money, who takes care of the kids, who's running the house, who's going to the orthodontist with them next week. Those issues are really universal, not just for pediatricians and neonatologists, but all moms have to deal with who takes the kid to the pediatrician when they're sick with the flu or
And
whatever.
you bring up a good point, because neonatology, that just, I can only imagine how enriching that is to change lives, but also how demanding. And then let's be real about the path that women have taken across time, that
Mm-hmm.
for us to really be a force to be reckoned with and to be seen at the same level of a man in of that profession or of similar level of profession, what helped you really put your foot forward and hold space as someone who is truly representing, but you don't undermine the essence of you being a woman, but you and your worth? What helped
I,
you to find that?
I have a great anecdote to tell you and your listeners. The short answer is my personality, my drive as a physician, my caring about my patients is always at the forefront. And anybody who feels fulfilled in their work wants to do a good job. It's not just in medicine or healthcare. If you're an attorney or a physical trainer, you want to do a good job and you want to be seen as competent. I joined a group of 8 men when we moved to Austin, Texas, several years after my episode of depression. I was the only woman in that group. Now, I knew a few of those men from my training, and they knew who I was, but they didn't know me as a mom. They knew me as a neonatologist. I joined that group. They were meeting at 7 in the morning and working in the NICU until 6 in the evening. And they were all married to stay at home moms, lovely women, but none of them were working. And after about 6 months, I said, "Hey guys, if we could just maybe start at 8 and end at 5 instead of 7 and 6, I could see my kids a little more because I have to get up at 6, get them on the bus, get them up at 6:30 for them to get on the bus at 7. I leave the house to get to the hospital by 7. I can't do it. I can't even get my kids off to school. And if I get home at 6 or 7, they've already been fed and they're almost ready for bedtime." So I said, "It's kind of just a mom thing. Can we try it?" We tried starting at 8 and checking out at 5. That meant the night person had a longer shift, but it was only longer by 2 hours, 1 hour. Within 3 months, several of the young partners came up to me and said, "This is amazing. We like this. We like seeing our kids before we go to work. We like eating breakfast with our children. We like eating supper with our family." And I went, "Duh, I mean, it's a family thing." It's not just a mom thing. And so, for your listeners, I had to prove myself as a good doctor. And then I had to say, hey guys, what about could we maybe change? And it's this notion of men really do not understand how women carry this kid worry in their heads while they're at work. Um, did they get to school with the paper, with the diorama, with the project, with the right soccer uniform? I mean, we're always thinking about all of these issues that relate to raising children and having a family. And we're also rushing off to work and doing our jobs and taking care of patients for me. So
And this
my
is and this is we're gonna hang tight one second. We're gonna go ahead and take a commercial break. We will be right back after this. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back after this.
Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversations. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
The importance of getting consistently good sleep cannot be overstated. Between 10 and 30% of adults truly struggle with insomnia. Nearly 40% of adults have reported falling asleep during the day without meaning to at least once a month. When you are sleep deprived, this can lead to physical and mental health problems, injuries, loss of productivity, and some research data highlight a greater likelihood of death. Research is showing that getting enough quality of sleep at the right times is vital, and recent research reveals that aligning your circadian rhythm to light and dark environments have the greatest influence of improving your health. For some people, this can be truly tough based on schedules and working hours. We can still do everything possible to improve our sleep. Here are some habits that can help you get better sleep. Number 1, stick to a sleep schedule. Be consistent and when you start winding things down for the night. Number 2, make sure that your bedroom area is quiet and dark and at a comfortable temperature for you. Number 3, commit to turning off all electronic devices such as computers, smartphones, TVs by a certain time. Number 4, limit your daytime naps. And number 5, make sure you're getting consistent exercise. It may take some time for you to transition to a better sleep pattern, and I encourage you to stick with it long enough until it becomes a habit. And this is your Fit Bite for today. Welcome back to the Health Revolution. Welcome back to the Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison. My guest today, Dr. Susan Landers. She is a retired neonatologist. She's an author and a speaker, and she helps to empower so many women to really, in the role of motherhood, to really amplify and forge the right path that optimizes their life. You know, Susan, we were talking before the break. You brought up several scenarios in which you really utilized your voice and you were able to cultivate that right conversation to create better space for you and your family and your inspiring colleagues. Now, I got to thinking, you've been open about saying that you've had bouts of depression throughout the while. And what can you talk to us a little bit about how you've handled burnout, and then what advice do you give to moms who are encountering burnout?
Yes, of course. Burnout is a little different from depression. There's mom burnout, where many of us are so overwhelmed with the physical aspects of childcare and household responsibilities, the emotional exhaustion of a child that may be difficult, the everything that's going on in the house, perhaps even being a caregiver for an older parent. It really varies all over the place. But working mom burnout is a feeling of physical exhaustion and mental overwhelm. We're somehow related to a child or a spouse or something in the family. It's not necessarily related to work, although work adds stress to this situation. Working mom burnout, often the mom, well, there are two types really. There's one where the mom has trouble with a particular child, and there's a different type where moms feels too much stress at work, and that affects everything going on with the family. But what happens is the mother dissociates herself or distances herself from either her work or that particular difficult child. And when mom feels like she's not doing a good job, either at work or as a mother, that's a sure sign of burnout. So, physical exhaustion, emotionally overwhelmed, distancing yourself from your top priorities, work or child or husband, and then feeling like you're failing, like you have no agency. What you do no longer matters. That's the essence of mom burnout. And I don't think that's different from clinical depression because it has to do with other people and their influence over you. I had mom burnout when my youngest was a teenager. She was terrible. She was rebellious at age 14. She wrecked cars at age 16. She skipped school. She got tattoos. She drove out of town to meet a boyfriend. I was going crazy. I mean, my other two children had been pretty easy. This one was like a teenager from hell. And I hated her. I had to tell a therapist, I can't believe this. I hate my teenage daughter. And she said, well, she's just being a rebellious teenager and you need to learn how to not fight with her. And I went, what do you mean? Because I'm always a very eager to get into conflict kind of person. I solve problems. That's what you do in the NICU. You solve problems for a living. You take care of sick patients and you explain things to parents and you get things fixed. I couldn't fix my teenager who was really acting bad. And so the therapist said, you have to learn how to not fight with her, how to walk away from her when she's triggering you. Again, I went to a therapist to help me professionally learn how to interpret what my teenager was doing and how it involved me. She was saying things to me, back talk and sass, that would get me going. Like, well, you're never here and you're a bad mom and you work too much and you care more about your patients than you care about me. or us. And when she said those things to me, I would get all riled up. And so I had to learn, with the help of a counselor, a therapist, to take deep breaths, either walk away from her and say, I need a minute, I need to go calm down, or not fight with her. So,
You know,
working mom burnout can affect any of us at any stage of our working mom life. Whether it's a difficult child or a teenager from hell, we have to recognize that when we're pulled into so many directions, we're trying to do a job, we're trying to be a mom, that is just more emotional stress than we can handle.
and
So,
I love
based
how you
on that experience and based on talking to new moms in my practice, I started to become more of a mothering advocate. I've always been a huge advocate for mothers, a big champion of breastfeeding and supporting normal newborns and normal child health. But as I entered the end of my career, I wanted to speak out more as a mother advocate. And after I retired, I wrote a book about my experience so that other women would know, here I was, an accomplished person, how difficult a time I had making it all work. I wanted other people, other working mothers, to know it's difficult to work full time and raise 2 or 3 kids. It's difficult to take care of yourself.
and
You have to
it
make
is.
self care a priority. I had
It,
to schedule yoga sessions with a friend. I had to get a physical trainer.
and it totally is. It's something that, I love how you say that, because this is something that, we have to keep in mind. And when you were talking about the fact that teenagers can do this, I'll tell you, there have been times when I've thought I'm about to lose the Mom of the Year award, 100%. But talk to us talk to us about your book. I know you've written, there's two, so I'd like to talk about the first one, and if we can bring up the slide, we're going to definitely go ahead and do so. Talk to us, how did you get the inspiration to write it, the backstory behind it? Tell us more about that.
I am a member of a book club, and I told medical stories to my friends at book club. Oh, I had a patient in Arkansas that did this, or I had a patient in Houston that did this, or oh, there was this parent in Austin that did this. And I would tell these stories, and they would go, you've got to write these stories down. They're wonderful. So I contacted parents of my favorite patients, and I asked them if I could tell their stories, of course, keeping them anonymous, because I wanted to paint a picture of life in the NICU. I don't think many people know what goes on in a NICU unless they have a baby that's in the NICU. It's premature, has a birth defect, or something like that. And so I collated all these stories and I began to write them down to paint a picture of how life is, how hard the doctors work, how hard the nurses work, how scary it is for the parents. Any of your listeners who've had a baby in the NICU, they know it's terrifying. It's traumatic to have a baby in the NICU. And I wanted my stories to reflect the good and the bad there, because some babies don't make it. There are some deaths and there are some bad outcomes, but the overwhelming majority of children in the NICU thrive and go on to be perfectly normal children. So I collated my stories with parental permission. And then my friend said, well, you got to tell your own story. I mean, you're a mom too. I never had a baby in the NICU, but we went through some illnesses. I had some challenges as a mom with respect to having sick children. And so I put in my personal stories, and I wrote this as if it's a memoir, as if I'm looking back, telling the story of when I was a young doctor, a young mother, as I got more experienced, having more children, having a longer career, changing jobs a couple of times in the middle of my career. And then through the whole experience of kids going through teen years and going off to college, and ended up with the story of the most rebellious child, the bad teenager, bless her heart. She's fine now. And so the book tells the story of a working mom who happens to be a pediatrician, who happens to have raised 3 kids and tried her very best to do a good job. But I was in the hospital a lot. I was not at home a lot. And there were times when I felt like I worked too much. There were other times when I felt like I was the best possible mother I could be. And I loved being a doctor, and I loved being a mother. And I think that's what's crucial for your listeners. Those of us who work full time really need to have meaning in our work. I've talked to enough mothers and I've read enough research to know that women who work want to feel they're making a difference. And you can't give up your children or a sick child and go to work if it's a dumb job and you're not making a difference. That's very difficult. So most women do want to make a difference in their work. And of course, we want to make a difference with our kids. That's the problem. It's combining the two things that makes it so stressful.
I have a question for you. What has neonatology taught you as a mom? And then I want to reverse that as well. What has your role as a mother taught you about neonatology?
The second question I'll answer first. It's easier. My role as a mother taught me that all the mothers who have sick babies in the NICU are terrified. They're scared of a bad outcome. They're terrified to see their child hooked up to wires and tubes, maybe getting a blood transfusion, being stuck with needles. It is a very traumatic thing to go through. When we have a baby, we imagine the beautiful, perfect Gerber baby. We all want that full-term, healthy baby. And sometimes prematurity is unexpected. And oftentimes birth defects are unexpected. So when something happens and you're having an abnormal pregnancy and delivering a small premature baby, it is terrifying. It's traumatic. And many women become overwhelmed because it's very difficult. You have to go to the hospital every day and you don't go home with your baby. Your baby's in the hospital. It affects marriages in a way that's very severe. It's very difficult to stay as a couple when you're worried about this child. That doesn't really even go away when the kids go home from the hospital. You still have to adjust to this notion of having a sick kid. So being a mother taught me what the other mothers were going through, because I could imagine how scary it was. Now, being a neonatologist taught me that most problems that most children have are totally fixable. That's what's good about modern medicine. Even tiny premature babies survive. Bigger preemies turn out to be perfectly normal children. And most problems that we deal with, most medical problems, get resolved. So I'm here to tell your listeners that most of the things they worry about with their children will eventually get worked out. And with good help, with either professional help or help from your spouse or family support, most mothers will be able to deal with whatever their children throw at them.
It proves that women are incredibly resilient. And then in terms of ranks, it makes a difference within families, within spouses. So
right.
Absolutely. We're going to take a commercial break. We will be right back after this. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back after this. Thank you so much for watching The Health Revolution. Our show is growing, and it's all thanks to viewers like you. No matter how you found us, please hit the subscribe button so we can stay connected and continue to deliver amazing content to you.
Life is so fragile, and we're constantly reminded just how fragile life can be, especially when we or a loved one is told we have cancer. Cancer survivor myself, I can tell you, we still feel very alone in this journey.
There's a study that's been showing that patients who are socially isolated have a worse prognosis, have a worse outcome than patients who are socially interconnected.
Buddies for Life is a non-profit cancer support group for those whose life has been impacted by cancer. Humor, hope, heart, and hugs.
Humor, hope, heart, hugs, and a whole lot of love.
Share this with your friends and family and support this community in every way you can. No one should face cancer alone.
I am a chemo buddy for life.
We are a buddies network.
No one does cancer alone.
Be a buddy.
And we are all here for you as a community of love.
We are chemo buddies for life.
And if you've heard 3 words, you have cancer, for yourself or someone else, you belong with us at Chemo Buddies for Life.
Healing through connections.
And now we want to give special thanks to Biomed Mobile IV for sponsoring the Health Revolution. Biomed Mobile IV is Colorado's top mobile IV therapy service, servicing throughout the state of Colorado. They offer an array of vitamins and above and beyond safety preparation. Biomed Mobile IV, your dedication to health and wellness is exactly what our show is all about. And we thank you for your support. Welcome back to the Health Revolution. Welcome back, everybody. My guest today, Dr. Susan Landers, retired neonatologist, author, speaker, and a woman who empowers moms everywhere. Let's talk about your second book. Can you, when did you feel like you needed to continue on as author? What inspired you, and what can we know about this book?
When I started to talk about my memoir and visit with folks on podcast, I was always asked about how do regular mothers help themselves, maintain themselves, provide self-care? How do they deal with their stress? And I was asked, how did I deal with it? Because I was in a stressful job and had children who had various problems throughout the years. And so because I was asked so many questions about the stress response, how we're stressed at work, how we're stressed at home, I wrote a short ebook to explain that stress and to examine the stressors in our working mom lives, so that this would be a short, helpful guidebook for working mothers. In it, I describe not only the stress response, but how much our other activities stress us out. Household chores, 70% of us are running the household without help from our spouses or partners. Social media adds stress to our lives. We're in a culture of comparison, and what we're seeing on social media stresses some women. It's not normal. It's not typical. It's all curated. And I watch my daughters scroll through their phones and I say, what are you looking at? And they say, other mothers. And I'm going, that's not typical. They're not showing you their messy house, and they're not posting on their bad days. And she said, well, we know maybe. And, I know they only post on their good days and cute pictures. And so I talk about things that give moms an abnormal message of having to be perfect. None of us are perfect. We're all stressed at work. We're all stressed by our children, sometimes our spouses or partners. And in the book, I go through how your work affects you, how your children and family can affect you, and effective ways that I used over the years to get better. I've already mentioned therapy and exercise, which are huge. Exercise has always been big for me. And now I'm into Pilates and bar, and I still walk a lot. I used to be a runner. You can do something simple like walk around in your neighborhood and get out into nature. A lot of women don't know that being in nature, being around green things, is calming and removes stress and helps dopamine. And I talk about things like having support from your friends, talking with your friends, laughing, sharing experiences. Our social media connected culture has encouraged women to be together less often. I talk about the importance of having colleagues at work. All of us share our stories with other women. And if you have colleagues at work where you can share your story, it helps so much, especially if you're working in a male dominated field. I talk about the ways that I tried to use meditation and effectively use journaling to help me manage my stress. I keep a gratitude journal still. I tried journaling when I was busy, and sometimes I didn't have time for it, but I used other methods to take care of myself. And so this short little ebook that I offer for moms, Master Your Stress, teaches them the major ways that they get overly stressed, whether it's from work or children or family, and the major ways I use to get out of that, to recover from that, to take care of themselves.
And I think, and you bring a great point, because physiologically speaking, and I know you already know this, just being a physician, that cortisol levels can have such a profound effect on the adrenals, especially if they've been chronic for a time and
Yeah.
we're under that constant stress. So it's great that we're having more conversations about how being stressed out, that it's not a good thing. It's not fight or flight in the moment, but we do have to address it to be in a better position at some point.
Yes, chronic stress is a killer. And sleep deprivation is too. And when I took call at night in the hospital, I would come home the next day and have to take a nap to stay alive. I remember when my youngest was little, she would say, "Mommy, why don't you talk to me before you take a nap?" And I would say, "Honey, I'm so tired. I've got to just take a nap. And then I promise you, I will give you my undivided attention." She and I talked about that again recently. And she said, "As a kid, I didn't really understand that." And I said, "I know that's so hard to understand, but sometimes you're so stressed and you're so tired that you need to sleep." And the other thing that's going on with young working women today is they're not sleeping well. They're not using their off hours, probably too much scrolling on the phone, but sleep is just as important as self-care. And I'll tell you another thing I learned. I don't know if I mentioned this in the Master Your Stress book. I learned that when I came home kind of tired, kind of stressed from work, I would pour up a glass of wine and drink a glass of wine, 1 or 2 glasses. And I thought this was helping me to be less stressed. When in fact, I think in retrospect, it was really just kind of numbing my feelings. I'm here to tell you, alcohol is not a good way to manage stress.
I agree.
It is not a good way. It masks the symptoms you're feeling. It makes your sleep worse. It makes you feel worse the next day. But people have this false impression that alcohol kind of calms your nerves. And it does in the first hour or two make you feel less stressed. But the after effects are not worth it. And you're not dealing with your stress when you're drinking alcohol. So the other thing I learned as an older mom, especially when my teenager was going crazy, was drink less or don't drink at all and stay hydrated. So I had to learn hard lessons like that, improve my own sleep, don't drink wine, continue to exercise,
I think
go out.
Those are great lessons we all can learn from. We're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back after this.
Greetings, I'm Angel Marie Monticelli, host of Energize You TV, every Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time. Go to Fresh Takes right here on E360 and get Reikified and energized today.
Welcome back to the Health Revolution. Welcome back, everybody. We are running out of time, but we've been spending quality time with Dr. Susan Landers, retired neonatologist, author, speaker, a woman who empowers moms everywhere. I want to make sure we're going to bring up your QR code. Talk a little bit about your burnout checklist.
Oh, on my website, susanlandersmd.com, there are resources for moms that are free. The burnout checklist I developed with the help of some of my younger nurse practitioner friends. 24 items are scored true or false, yes or no. And with a score of 0 to 8, I think you're just kind of average, doing okay. And 8 to 16, you're stressed out. And 16 and above, you're burned out. And so I did this as a way to give moms a quick way to check in with where they were. I also have on my website a self-assessment tool that, again, I developed with nurse practitioners. So all these young nurse practitioners who are moms working full-time took the checklist, took the self-assessment, and loved it. And so I offer it to other parents. There is a wellness journal in there as well on my resources page. For people who want to order my book, you can order my book from my website. You don't have to go directly to Amazon. My website will take you to either Barnes & Noble, Bookshop, Amazon, any of the major booksellers. So I have lots of resources on my website for parents.
And where can we find you on social media?
I'm on Instagram at Dr. Susan Landers. I'm on Facebook at Dr. Susan Landers. I'm on LinkedIn as well. And I see you're putting all of my handles up on the screen. I'm so appreciative. I'm not on Twitter as much as I used to be. I don't know about how people are using X these days.
It can be evolving.
Can be.
The most euphemistic thing we can say about that.
I also have Adrienne, I have a new Substack newsletter called Moms Matter, and you can subscribe to that for free. Your listeners can subscribe to that on my website. It says subscribe to newsletter, and it'll take you to Substack. So I'm offering that. I like to write, and I like to tell stories that connect with mothers. It's not a parenting newsletter. It's a reality check newsletter. All the things all the things that we all worry about and think about. And I love it when people send me comments and contact me and ask me questions. So I'm doing this out of a labor of love. I'm a big advocate for moms and children. And I wanted to spend my retirement doing something besides medicine. And this
You definitely have so much to offer, and I know that we are running out of time, but I know our viewers can definitely check out all of your information, and we've got that in the show notes as well as reference. Susan, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're so welcome. And I love your ads and your sponsors. It is
Well, when
just
you're
wonderful.
Well, when you are a strong TV show, we want to make sure that we deliver and the content and all of that. So thank you for being here, and for the
Oh,
rest of for all our viewers, remember you can always see our website. You can catch us there at thehealthrevolutiontv.com. You can find out up and coming information, subscribing to our newsletter. If you want to share any show topics you'd like for us to cover, that'd be fantastic. Our QR code is at the top where our website is. So if you take out your phone and do a little quick snap, you can do that. And then, of course, don't forget, we are on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, right here on E360 TV. And that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, we will see you then. Take care.
thanks.